Talk Show.
Recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation and around the world. You're listening once again to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. My name, John Troyer. This is podcast number 145. Oh, my goodness, we already have an echo, so everybody mute yourself. We fight our way through technical difficulties to bring you every week the best in virtualization news and commentary, chit-chat between myself and whoever else is on the phone. We're actually live here today. Great show. We're going to talk about VMware, software, and software as a service and applications. Basically, what is VMware doing in the application space? There's been a lot of acquisitions lately. You may have heard about SocialCast and Zimbra and SlideRocket and others. So we'll be talking about that. What do we think we're doing? How does that relate to vSphere? How does that relate to your job? All about that on the podcast today. Great guest here. Very pleased to have with us live here in the studio is Javier Soltero, who is, and we'll bring him on in just a moment. We're actually doing another test run of our video conferencing system, our video podcasting system. I don't think we're broadcasting live today, and in fact, we're having trouble getting set up, so we'll just keep going. I promise any day now, you'll be able to see our smiling faces every week, should you so choose. But we'll always produce the audio podcast, so if you're listening to this in your car or while waiting for your discs to reformat, I won't take that away from you. We'll always do audio as well. Anyway, thanks for everybody for showing up. We've got a good group. I think we have a quorum. I'm going to count on your questions today. You can ask anything you want. You can even ask if we know what the H we're doing, because that's a legitimate question for this podcast.
It is a legitimate question.
So anyway, let's get moving. As always, the Week in Virtualization News with Alex Meyer.
Thank you so much, John, and hello, everyone in the intertubes. I hope you're having an excellent day wherever you are, and here is this week's news. On Facebook, by the way, I'm going to start with Facebook because it's really important. Okay. The vCloud team was really busy sharing stuff. A video demo of NetApp deploying data centers in minutes using vCloud was posted yesterday, and another video demo of how to create custom templates by Verticore was posted today. And vCloud folks also posted a number of interesting links, so you can find it all at facebook.com, VMware Cloud. And also on Facebook, the VMware View team.
I think that Alex is at facebook.com/vCloud.
Yes, what did I say? VMware vCloud.
VMware vCloud.
Yes.
We'll get the URL right. You can find it.
It's facebook.com/VMware vCloud.
Okay.
And then VMware View team, whose webpage is called facebook.com/VMware View. They were also quite, happy there, and yesterday they shared a new video called VMware End User Computing, right-sizing your approach to desktop virtualization. Sounds really interesting and kind of important. Anyways, we also have released last week vFabric 5, which includes SQL Fire and Elastic Memory for Java. You can find out more about that either on the communities, under the application platform on VMTN, or, of course, on VMware.com.
Yeah, also you can check out their new Facebook page at facebook.com/VMware vFabric, I believe.
That's probably just what it's called. And a whole bunch of vCenter Orchestrator plugins are being released today, and you can find out all about them at VMware.com/go/vCenter. This is your final reminder. Early bird pricing for VMworld registration is ending on the 24th of June, so the time is running out if you want to save some cash for yourself or for your company. I don't know if anybody's actually paying their own way to VMworld these days.
Some people do.
They do? Well, then, register now. Go, go, go. There are, of course, a bunch of cool events coming up, as usual, in the exciting world of virtualization. The VMware Forum is making a stop in Chicago and London today and continues on to Minneapolis, Toronto, and Prague. Kind of like Santa Claus. I don't know how the VMware Forum actually travels to all these locations and can be in two places at once, but they do it. The webpage with details is linked from VMware.com homepage in the gray box that says VMware Forum 2011 on the lower left. And we have a ton of webinars again coming up soon on topics ranging from real-time awareness and risk assessment over cloud adoption by federal agencies to desktop virtualization in hospitals, There are more webinars listed there than I can even mention here on the podcast, so
Great.
just go and check out webcasts.vmware.com. You'll find something you'll be interested in for sure. Then a full-day regional VMUG conference is coming up in Vancouver on the 21st of June. Regional conferences, as you know, are much more than just usual VMUG meetings. They usually are full-day conferences with an agenda, including interesting speakers. And the Vancouver conference, this case, will feature our very own John Troyer. So if you are not going there yet, this is your chance to meet your idol. And
I have to object to that. Anyway, I will be in Vancouver next Tuesday. If you're at all west of the Mississippi, you should be coming because we'll have a good time, not just to meet me. It'll be a great conference. I'm going to be popping up in the keynote. We'll be talking about how to use social media effectively to get a raise and to get a promotion. We'll also be doing a little social media discussion in the afternoon. It looks like a really good conference. He's got some good stuff going on up in Vancouver, so I hope to meet you there. The week after that, I think I'm popping into Denver, the Denver Regional VMUG as well. Hopefully I'll get up on stage and we'll tell some jokes too, because, I'm here all week. Tip your waitress, try the veal. Anyway, back to you, Alex.
all right. And
Hey, John, you should go to South by Southwest and do that talk.
Dude, I can't stand South by Southwest. Tony went this year, and also Will Staney in our Austin VMware Careers team. It's a little too.
I was there.
Okay, good. It's a little too. The social media industry kind of gives me hives. So anyway,
Too hipster for John. I wore a suit. It was really funny.
Oh,
That's
wow.
not a good show to wear a suit.
Wow. You were the suit.
I
there.
was the suit. Yeah.
Anyways, just to wrap up, we have a whole lot of VMUG meetings this week. Romania, Calgary, Columbia, Scotland, Western Michigan, Indianapolis, Nashville, Central Ohio, Poland, South Florida, Northern Indiana, Seattle, Halifax, Jacksonville, and the fabulous Las Vegas. And you can find more details and registration links for all these events by going to myvmug.org and click on events. And this is all the news I have for this week. In addition, I would like to mention our community members podcast about virtual security. It's going to be tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it will focus on PaaS.
Cool. It's always a good show. Also here over on Talk Show. Check out our communities.com/group/podcast for other podcasts from the community as well.
Yes.
Great.
All right. Back to you, John. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex. So yeah, we had a great week this last week as well. I was out in Boston for Tech Field Day, so check out techfieldday.com for the results of that. We had a pretty good VMware presentation there. It's actually really hard presenting to you guys. It was a VMware-centric crowd. We're streaming live over the internet, and so it can't be about anything under NDA, but yet half of you guys are under NDA or in betas anyway. So we had to kind of balance, it was a kind of a particular balance there. But I think we did a good job. We were also trying to focus on projects that were featured in Cambridge because we were in the Cambridge office. Cambridge office is actually great. It's the first time I've been there. If you are on the East Coast, especially if you're kind of computer science oriented or you know someone that is, it seems like a great office. There's about 200 people there, so it still feels like kind of a small company. They do a lot of academic collaboration along the East Coast, so definitely check it out if Palo Alto is not your bag, because we are hiring everywhere.
Or on a day like this, I could. This isn't your bag. I don't know what is.
It's a beautiful day in Palo Alto.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about the VMware site in Cambridge is that the sign says Google, a pipe symbol, VMware, so it's actually kind of an intriguing sign.
Well, hopefully we're piping the right stuff from Google into VMware. Yeah, we talked about MVP, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Had a good conversation about our mobile virtualization platform. I covered SRM a little bit, but again, that was mostly futures, so we can't talk about much. And then talked about this student cloud thing, which is an open source project built on top of vCloud Director. I actually recorded also a little video. Hopefully you guys will post some blog posts. We'll have that. I don't know when they're actually going to release it, sometime this year, so maybe it'll have its coming out party a little later. So great. So I'll see you guys all in Vancouver and Denver hopefully soon. But let's get to our show here. Very pleased to have with us Javier Soltero. Javier is the CTO in charge of applications and software as a service.
As a service, that's right. He of many acronyms. CTO of SaaS and apps.
Yeah. And you came in. You actually were the founder and CEO of Hyperic.
That's correct. Yeah. So I am. The way I tend to describe it these days is I am a very experienced plumber with aspirations to become an interior decorator. In my transition from infrastructure, so not everybody gets that for some reason. I find it hilarious. Whatever. It might be. I tried it actually at South by Southwest. It got absolutely no response. Tons of experience in infrastructure. Came here to VMware through the acquisition of Hyperic and SpringSource back in September of 2009. And over the last year, and even a little bit before that, I've been involved in a lot of projects that deal with applications and helping VMware continue to evolve its business from obviously our powerhouse product in vSphere, which everybody on the call is hopefully a huge fan of, right? To our middleware and what we call Layer 2, our cloud application platform stuff, which I was very involved with as well. And now most of the time I spent is on our end user computing business, where we're not only focusing on virtual desktop technologies, VDI and things like that, but also expanding into direct end user applications. And it's a very interesting time for VMware. I don't know, were you doing this podcast when the SpringSource acquisition took place?
I think so, yes.
Because I can imagine that the head-scratcher that the SpringSource acquisition was for folks that have been following VMware closely for the last 5 or 6 years prior to that, in terms of, you're excellent at server virtualization. What are you doing buying a Java framework and an applications management technology?
Well, somebody on the phone, were you there in, what was that, VMworld 2008, when the Spring guys got up on stage?
That was 2009.
Or 2009.
I was there.
Yeah, I was there, and it wasn't really all that much of a surprise. I mean, it made sense.
People started to walk out of the keynote because they did not understand it.
Yeah. That was duly noted. I think it didn't phase Rod. We knew the better part of that story is to look at VMworld last year. So a year after the acquisition, with us being a lot more able to articulate the story and explain, what our ambition was, and I'm glad, by the way, to the caller who mentioned that it seemed like the right thing to do and all that. I mean, a lot of people got it. Obviously, we got it, right? We made a big investment in that, but I think it's natural, right? As a company starts expanding into other areas and moving further up the proverbial stack, if you will. There's obviously lots of risks. There's questions about a company's core competency and ability to execute successfully on multiple fronts, et cetera. And so it's a very interesting time, and we're committed to. We've made some excellent acquisitions that I hope to talk about today. And interior decorating, man, that's where it's at.
Well, I think maybe your plumber joke didn't get the laughs. I think a lot of people outside IT infrastructure don't really realize what happens in IT infrastructure. That it's a little mysterious. We're the guys that say no, or we're the guys that are always in the data center.
Right.
You're not quite sure what they do. And so I think it's really interesting the way VMware is approaching this. I'm glad that it's different from, for instance, the example of, if to use an analogy, Oracle and what it did with Oracle OpenWorld.
Right.
After the Sun acquisition, the Java guys, frankly, that thing is so big, I don't know how they do it, but the Java guys were all the way across town. Over by Union Square, they definitely felt like they turned them into second-class citizens. At VMware, over the last 2 years of the Hyperic of the SpringSource acquisition, I've definitely not felt that.
No. It's we're one company. We're doing a lot of things in parallel, and actually relative to Oracle and any other subject other than databases and possibly hardware, I have to say that whether it's applications or middleware, I have never seen more painful software to use in my life. I mean, talk about core competency. So if there's an example not to follow as VMware gets to expand from, its core roots in virtualization, if that's allowed, right? That's not NDA, folks.
I'm just laughing.
I get paid to be, to express my opinion, and it's definitely anybody who's ever used Oracle Financials for any kind of real business purpose, whether it's expense reporting or any other actual business process, you'd likely agree with me that it's not exactly applications that people love to use. And so to that end, our view is, listen, there's an opportunity here. Just because they're enterprise apps doesn't mean they have to suck, basically. So
So you're telling me financial apps don't need to be hard to use?
Well, I'm
or
telling
painful
you that,
to use. Come on, it's financials.
I guess.
Unless you're actually one of those people who like sitting down with numbers all the time.
I just want to get
pretty darn boring.
reports in, man, and I don't want it to be painful. I agree that general ledgers and that kind of application has its it's hard to make that fun, but I think there's a whole range of apps actually, and I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but there's a whole range of business applications, particularly ones that are used by professionals on a day-to-day basis to do simple tasks that just require interaction with some kind of system of record, whether it's HR or whatever. The state of enterprise apps, from eras past is pretty dismal, right? And there's an opportunity with cloud computing and with a lot of the interesting things that are happening with alternative delivery models like SaaS, where you can create applications that are fundamentally better architected, better designed, more enjoyable to use. They might lack in customization. See, that's the trade-off, right? Like the way that, and normally I have a picture that I use to illustrate this, but when you talk about enterprise applications, take an HR management suite, right? Who's ever. It might be PeopleSoft, it might be anybody else. These are applications that they're very complicated. There's lots of moving parts, but the real complication is that the customer thinks that these applications are should be implemented in a way that's specific to their business, right? Like, I run HR this way, and I want the app to reflect this process in HR. And so what that leaves you with is essentially toolkits, right? They're applications that are construction kits that need to be customized into whatever the customer actually wants. And so it's only as good as the implementation, and this is Siebel and PeopleSoft and basically everybody in that category. And in the end, the result is you get an application that is always from a end user, from a user experience perspective, terrible, right? They're ugly apps, they're clunky, they have workflows that suck. I mean, so I think that's part of that's my personal grief with enterprise apps, and I think that how that's getting channeled into VMware. Just like when we decided to acquire SpringSource, we didn't go and mount a head-on assault into BEA and IBM WebSphere and sort of try to claim the J2EE mantle. We said, no, what's coming after this, right? What is the, since we're talking about cloud and we're talking about making people's lives better in terms of IT, what is the next thing there? And Spring as a development framework certainly suggested that. Hyperic's approach to management reflected that, and similarly SocialCast and all these other things embody, I think, that spirit of doing things differently and seizing the opportunity that we have for a big shift with cloud.
So I guess my next question was going to be, what is going to VMware's general approach to the area? What's our vision, and why do we think we can go there? I think you touched on that. Mm-hmm. But is it just about ease of use? Is that we're trying to kind of skate where the puck is?
Carbonated beverage, by the way, folks, illegal. I didn't get them in. Yeah.
No burping on the podcast. No. You can curse a little. That's fine.
Yeah, well, believe me, you don't want to give me that license. I listened to Howard Stern on the way here. That's going to be bad. In terms of corporate marketing, we try to curse just a little bit, just to give it a human flavor.
Right. But kind of what is it about ease of use, or what does VMware see? Why we're looking towards the future? Yeah. I love the way that Paul says, we're really. It's going to happen whether we're doing it or not.
Right.
And we're playing in this legacy application space. We're playing in this cloud enablement space. But what are we trying to do with the app space?
So there's three things that I can point to that speak to our overall end user computing strategy. And the first one is to enhance and improve the delivery of the existing Windows infrastructure that's out there. And this is View, this is ThinApp, this is all of the initiatives that are happening around accepting the fact that Windows desktops are I don't have one, but a lot of people do.
They're here, we have to deal with
them. They're here, they're going to be here for a long time, right? And so there's a way in which we've already established that you can deliver those desktops to any device, centrally manage them, improve the security and all the accessibility that's necessary for an existing Windows desktop experience, and less so the Windows desktop and more the applications that only run within it, right? Okay. And that's something to keep in mind relative to ThinApp, and here's sort of the outer edge of the things that I can talk about in terms of this podcast. But in general, it's not the fact that you want the Windows sort of desktop and the start menu and everything else. It's about being able to access applications that you can only access through Windows today, and that you likely will only be able to access Windows for presumably ever.
Windows on your iPad, I mean, it's kind of like the dancing dog, right? It's amazing that it does it at all. It doesn't do it well.
I mean,
we do it pretty good.
We do it pretty good, and I think, I had an epiphany the other day when I actually had to use the View client on the iPad for something that related to Microsoft Office, which is where I'm headed. But in any case, so improving the delivery and security of Windows desktops across different devices and in different ways is very important. The second piece is actually delivering management and an application lifecycle for not only traditional desktop and Windows apps, but also more importantly for SaaS apps that allows IT to centrally manage the entitlements, the security, and any other type of user-related request around an application, and this is what the Horizon App Manager is doing today, right? So the Horizon App Manager for the IT operations and sysadmin folks on the call is aimed at helping people control from a single point of entry the access into a variety of applications that you'd otherwise have to manually provision. So, for example, let's say you just joined VMware, right, and you need access. You're a manager, so you need access to Workday. You need access to the benefits site. You need access to an Office suite. So we got to provision you for that. You might need to access some information in Salesforce.com. So you'll need a login for that. The task of actually provisioning you for all of those applications is very painful, and certainly doing that across a wide range of people exponentially more so, right? So that's what Horizon does for you as an IT professional today, and it's got a very ambitious roadmap that probably is a little bit out of scope for this call. But for the end user, it's ostensibly a single sign-on solution where you basically go into the Horizon App Manager, you provide a single set of credentials, and then you log in and get into an environment where every app that you're entitled to use, and even ones that you could use but might not be configured for, are presented to you in a single point of entry kind of way. So you can literally click and say, okay, it'll take me to Salesforce, and it'll take you right into Salesforce, or Box.net, or any number of apps, both, by the way, apps that are provided by VMware as well as apps that are provided by other folks, partners. We expect to create a rich ecosystem. All of this built around SAML, OAuth, and standard authentication protocols. And then the third part of the end-user strategy is delivering a new set of productivity and collaboration apps that use modern models for collaboration, things like social, to improve the way people work, right? Personal anecdote there is when I joined VMware, I went from, Hyperic was a company of about 60 people or so, SpringSource was about 200. The moment you get into a company that has thousands of people, and as broad a population as we have, the different mechanisms for communication and collaboration are really, they're so disparate, right? Like the standard at VMware and at many companies is to just do everything through email. And so everybody's had this experience of having to do, collaboration through asynchronous collaboration through email with attachments and all this. That collaboration model is completely broken. I personally don't think that SharePoint and anything like it solves it. And so the acquisition of things like SocialCast and SlideRocket are rooted in that strategy. So those are the three things: improving the Windows desktop experience and delivering it everywhere, providing an application lifecycle management for SaaS and on-premise apps, and delivering the new way to work around messaging and collaboration.
What I like about those three pillars, though, it is as an IT holistic kind of view, right? It's not just about app delivery. Mm-hmm. It's not just about buying new applications mm-hmm. that we're gonna give to our cloud providers.
Right.
It's really I think what occurred to me listening to you is mm-hmm. it is based in a real groundedness of VMware's 10 years of experience working with IT.
Yep.
Saying what challenges is IT trying to solve?
Yeah. In fact, if you read Steve Harrod's blog for both the SlideRocket and the SocialCast acquisition, he mentioned the phrase "a new way to work," and that was when we were sitting around saying, "Well, how are we going to explain this to people, and what can we use as a simple tagline, if you will, to suggest to people how we see this. And I came up with the idea saying, well, it's really a new way to work. The cloud represents a new way to work. And so what right, being self-critical, right? You say, well, what right does VMware have to go and talk about productivity apps and all these things that are outside of its core competency around virtualization? And it occurred to me that we've already changed the way people work. We've changed the way IT administrators and IT operations people look at server hardware and provisioning activities. And gee, if that's not changing the way those people work, then I don't know what is, right?
I hope we made everybody.
Yeah, I know. We'll see when we take questions. Well, I'm bracing myself for what's to come. Similarly, with our Cloud Foundry and our vFabric technologies, we've changed the way developers work. We're on a mission to make it less painful to develop and deploy and manage applications in a cloud-based environment. And so to that end, taking it all the way out to the end user, which has plenty of challenges because the end user doesn't know VMware, we don't get any freebie credit on that, right? Like we don't get, people are like, VMware what, right?
Right. We've never solved the how do you explain to your relatives at Thanksgiving, explain VMware to them.
Yeah.
We've never solved that problem.
Yeah, and I think, there's plenty of great companies, by the way, that never pass that test. But we'll see, I think, over time as we start delivering applications. And these applications, by the way, are designed and delivered in such a way that you choose them because they're awesome and not because they're branded by VMware. We're not making any assumptions, right, about the fact that people who know our company from its infrastructure leadership would say, we're hoping for that. But, it's...
Yeah, that's good. I get a sense... I also get a clear sense internally that we're fairly humble about our position
humility.
in the
Absolutely.
marketplace.
And this is a long game, and one that's going to require not just VMware, but other folks like Google and other companies that are like-minded in this idea that the era of the PC is over, to join in and cooperate where relevant and compete where necessary. Right?
We do have a couple of questions online.
Awesome.
So Ryan, you're actually on the phone. If you unmute yourself. Now we're not talking specifically about Horizon or, and I don't know if we want to tackle this or not. But Ryan, are you on the phone?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sure. Go ahead and ask your question about your competitive question.
So as we start talking about how centralized portal integration and the concept of really taking away the traditional environment for users, presenting out application instances in more of an isolated way, the way that we see IT as a trend kind of going, Horizon looks to, at least in my eyes, address a lot of that, kind of a change in the corporate mindset.
Yep.
Open Cloud Access is something that Citrix announced, I guess, last week or a couple of weeks ago. I mean, what is VMware's stance on it? If I get asked by one of my clients, he says, hey, look, we just heard about this from Citrix, where does Horizon position itself against that particular offering, or does it look to kind of go in a different direction?
I think we're looking to go in a different direction in general, and taking fairly broad strokes in this because I think that Noah or somebody like him would be a better person. Yeah, we should have him on there. Citrix's strategy is built around perpetuating the use and prevalence of Windows applications, whereas ours is clearly more focused on helping chart the path beyond them. And so what that statement means is that you're likely to see a lot more emphasis from our end placed on capabilities around management of SaaS and sort of next-generation applications through Horizon, while, of course, staying very current on the fact that the Windows desktop isn't going away overnight. And through that, whether it's through open standards or other initiatives, I think, it's pretty clear. We're not looking to defend Windows turf there. We're trying to do something different. But it's a good question and one that I think we should definitely pose to Noah or somebody from the Horizon team to answer more directly.
Yeah, we'll try to have them on in the next couple of weeks. They've been busy since they've launched.
I know they've launched, yeah. So it's a very exciting product.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I like the way that, just like with server apps, we say, okay, you've got to deal with your legacy apps. If you go to some of these cloud conferences, you feel like, oh my God, I got to rewrite everything. I got to start from scratch. And so we've recognized, and it's obviously we're very good at dealing with your legacy server apps. I like the way that we also talked about, okay, you've got to deal with, you have to deal with Windows. You've got Windows in your organization, but it's not like we're particularly have a vested interest in perpetuating Windows.
Absolutely. In fact, I
that was politic, John.
Pardon?
That was politic on how you said that.
Well, hey, man, a lot of our products run on Windows. A lot of our admins are Windows admins.
Yeah.
We've grown.
A lot of our workloads are Windows workloads. Yeah. So I mean, these are things that we have to be honest with ourselves, and I think Paul talks about that as well. I'd be surprised if you hear anything different from any other executive at VMware. What I was going to say though about this kind of evolutionary thing that you were alluding to, there's obviously everybody gets very excited about the potential for cloud throughout, right? Whether it's at the infrastructure level, at the app platform level, in the apps, there's this sort of we could be doing everything in the cloud, right? We could be doing everything in say Google Apps, or we could be using every feature of Salesforce.com to do every part of our business. And the reality is that many companies, in particular large companies, are looking for vendors who can project a credible, viable vision around where things should go, but actually take them on that path, at their pace, frankly. It's pretty difficult to go to the CIO of a large media and entertainment company like I was speaking to yesterday and say, listen, the good thing about the cloud is it makes every single thing you have in your data center irrelevant. Every ops person that you have, every single IT asset, you can just, listen, let's rethink this whole thing. You're on the verge of doing something new. How about we just go all cloud all the time at every layer of your business? And that's not a practical suggestion. I mean, there's plenty of things that aren't broken, right? And so VMware's ability, which started actually in allowing you to successfully virtualize existing Windows workloads and things like SAP and so forth, to extending into cloud application platforms and helping you both deploy your existing apps. Say you have existing Java apps that you can deploy on vFabric, or you're going to build new ones and you're going to run those on Cloud Foundry. Same thing with the end user strategy and allowing you to do both things.
Let's see. A quick question on Trusted Cloud. I don't think anything we're doing we're talking at a bit higher level than anything in particular integrations with the RSA stuff today.
Yeah.
And let's see, Eric did also ask specifically about WaveMaker.
Okay, great question.
I mean, that's a layer 2.
It's a layer 2 thing, but I can talk a little bit about that. So what was the question? What's WaveMaker?
How does it fit in? Yeah.
So WaveMaker is a very interesting technology to do rapid application development for predominantly forms-based apps. So, if Chris, the CEO of WaveMaker, would allow the comparison, you can think of Microsoft Access as the canonical forms-based application for the client-server world. You'd have a database and you'd build a bunch of forms that read and write data from it. That Access was very successful in its day in making it very easy for non-professional developers to assemble, applications that were situational applications, to use Gartner's exotic parlance on that. One-off or single purpose or whatever. And so WaveMaker is a modern take on that, where you are able to, with completely browser-based visual elements, essentially assemble fairly complicated forms and workflows and have the output of that be a run-of-the-mill Spring app. And that's the real key, right? And the part that makes WaveMaker an exciting addition to the VMware family is the fact that a lot of these rapid application development tools do not support round-trip modification. In other words, I spit out, you use this cool graphical tool, it spits out a payload, but if, say, you need to make some additional customization to it that occurs outside of the actual development environment, then you're breaking that sort of compatibility and you're toast.
Or it's using some proprietary language, scripting tools. I mean, Salesforce does it a little bit, and Zoho does it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of attempts at doing this, but none other than WaveMaker that provide the fidelity to a programming model that can be modified by, non-WaveMaker aware developers, right? Like, it spits out a typical Spring MVC app, and so to that end, it's a very exciting product for us. It's a fairly new addition to the vFabric mix, but one that we expect to continue to see a lot of uptake for. I hope you guys try it out if you're curious. It's a great question.
So a lot of the folks listening to the podcast are in our channel, in VMware's channel.
Okay.
And or if they're not, they're they're VMware champions at their org.
Right.
And so how is VMware going to work with the channel on these new market areas?
In the application space specifically? Yeah. Well, it's candidly something that we're figuring out. Obviously, the channel specifically is an extremely, extremely important part of our business. So to that end, I think there's, a very strong appetite for us to figure out how, either through things like Horizon or other capabilities, these apps can be delivered in a channel-friendly way. In a lot of cases, the trick with apps is that, the applications, I mentioned that we're acquiring applications we expect to be best of breed in their own category, and things that stand on their own and are not necessarily great because they're part of VMware, at least not at the time we acquire them. And so to that end, we expect the channel to, where appropriate, help us bring those to market. So, for example, SocialCast is a good example. So SocialCast, for those in the call who haven't seen anything about it, it's essentially an enterprise social product. And the cool thing about it, you do it a disservice by saying it's enterprise Twitter or enterprise Facebook, because it's not really. It's like those two things in that it's driven by an activity stream and it has this notion of a social graph behind it. But it is very much a business product because it's one of its strongest features actually is the fact that it's built for integration. In other words, it's able to, using like a Facebook Connect type API, a very simple API called SocialCast Reach, allow you to embed social capabilities in existing apps. And this is very unique because you could say, okay, well, the enterprise is going social, and you go and create this new tool where you're expecting all communication to take place, and that's going to be communication that's real-time and separate from email and communication that takes place inside of Jira tickets and WordPress blogs and Salesforce.com, Chatter, for example, whatever. You have all of these different islands of collaboration. With SocialCast Reach, you're able to actually create bridges into those islands and embed contextual discussions, right, into everything from SAP to SharePoint, which is actually a really popular extension for them, and thereby add social capabilities and some rich, collaboration elements into the things you already have. Going back to the channel, the delivery model for SocialCast is actually three ways. You can actually run it in the public cloud as a pure SaaS thing. You can run it in a private cloud in a managed form, which currently is operated by SocialCast, but potentially could be operated by channel partners and other service providers. And then third, you can actually run it on-premise, and it's packaged as a VMware vApp, and it runs on vSphere and uses a lot of the vSphere capabilities for automatic scaling and so forth. So it's a very well-managed vSphere app that's in use. I think folks like General Motors and a host of others actually run it on top of vSphere. So it has this great synergy. To those who may have seen simply the fact that it was an enterprise social product, the fact that it's built on our platform is also a very cool element for us.
Yeah, our internal rollout of SocialCast has been pretty interesting. That started pre-acquisition.
Yes, it sure did. I was responsible for that as part of my tinkering and experimentation. I figured that if it would fly here, then it would be a very good data point to suggest that this might be the kind of social or the kind of collaboration product. Actually, I wasn't looking specifically for anything social. I was just looking for a way to break the giant logjam that is email here. Yeah. And, the idea isn't to simply replace email altogether with SocialCast or things like it, but to provide alternative ways for people to discover information, which we've already seen. I know you've probably seen some of the, things that happen on SocialCast where we have people out in the field in, remote offices in Europe or whatever that get instant responses from product managers. Just because they don't even know who to ask the question to, but it's sort of the system routes it to the right people using the knowledge that we all have as employees here of who works on what, right?
It's kind of the synchronicity, the magic of like on Twitter.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Most of the folks on this podcast are familiar with.
Right,
that.
and in fact, so another element of SocialCast Reach is in fact the like button. So you can actually put a like button and embed it very easily into any number of on-premise or even off-premise enterprise apps, and those likes register through the Open Social Protocol back into the SocialCast environment, and you get this sort of really rich integration of content and people and comments and documents and all of that, which I think is not the end state, but definitely a huge leap towards what we need to do.
It's pretty good. I mean, VMware now is about 10,000 people with acquisitions and stuff, and we have tried many attempts at various collaborations.
We have them all. I think we have them all, honestly.
And they're hard. It's hard nut to crack. And I think bringing some of that magic, that interaction paradigms that have proven out. It looks like Twitter and Facebook on the surface, but yeah, there's a lot of plumbing underneath. What I've noticed immediately is a lot of these, you get two we're still trying to learn how to use it, because it's not Twitter and it's not Facebook.
It's emergent, right? It's supposed to be
it's not launched yet.
Well, it's not even launched yet, and there's like
3,000 or
4,000 people on it,
Half the company is on it, we haven't even launched it.
One of the beauties of products like it, right, is that it is supposed to be emergent. It's not overly prescriptive. It doesn't say, like SharePoint or other products do, here, let's go and create this long-lived container that's going to be the place where we're going to talk about everything related to this particular project or this particular organizational, group or whatever. Like the social media group has this project container, and all discussions are there. No, it's a lot more free-form than that, and it mirrors more accurately the way people expect to discover information. So, for example, while we have this, org chart like every other company has, the folks at SocialCast they're very I call them touchy-feely, actually, which they don't really like, but they have this very strong sense for the way people work and improving the way people work, and so they study things like the underlying social graph that's represented inside of a SocialCast instance, and they can tell you, based on the way people communicate, hey, these people right here, these 7 people are what they call, I think, central connectors or hubs, and there's actual academic theory on this stuff too, so they didn't make this up. Those people might not be like the managers or directors or VPs or what have you of the company. They just might be extremely well-connected people who've been with the company for a long time, and it's through them that you get these great, hey, I'm looking for somebody who to give me the latest data on vShield, this or that, asks, some, person out in a remote office. That person is followed by a TAM who is then going to route that question directly into somebody over here, and then 2 minutes later the answer is posted. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
And I know we're also looking very closely at this, and this may be more related to traditional IT, and we've talked about with Reach. How does this impact our workflow and business processes? And we're all still exploring that as well.
Absolutely, and there should be a whole range of new apps. To my early comments about the sucky state of enterprise apps, I think that it's things like this that make apps a lot more human, that could create the next generation of enterprise applications that, they do financials, they do things that are necessary to keep the business running, but they don't have to suck. They don't have to be like some a very sort of complex form that you sit there and populate. Like, they don't have to be dehumanized, I guess, which is a really interesting note.
Yeah, Brian Madden had an interesting article last week, I believe. I don't know if you saw it.
Is he on the podcast?
He is not. He's usually not. He is sometimes, but not today. But he had an interesting post from last week, and he's being provocative.
Right.
That's what Brian
does. That's what he does, yeah.
But talked about how he
did. Is Simon Crosby on the call, too?
No,
I know Simon, so. Yeah.
No.
He's another provocateur.
I don't have anything. My mom told me when I don't have anything nice to say, I don't say anything at all. But he was saying, well, IT can't capture that magic. There's this magic out there at Facebook and Twitter, and IT just fundamentally can't capture it, and things like SocialCast, are doomed to failure, which I completely disagree with, because I've seen it happen already.
Yeah.
And it would be
That's
negligent. I mean, there already is a kind of a don't ask, don't tell policy about things like Dropbox. Extremely useful.
Right.
I'm sure there's an enormous amount of corporate information from many companies out there in Dropbox.
Right.
It would be, as IT professionals, it's part of our job is to figure out how to craft tools and policies around, embracing, if people need this ability to share tools out, let's build it. And we did it with PCs, we did it with the internet. Let's do it with these social apps too.
Yeah, and I think, listen, just because it's blessed by IT doesn't mean that they're going to suck all the fun out of it, right? Like there's a way to, and this is a message equally for IT. Listen, I worked with infrastructure people. I've been in ops before. I know that they're not just trying to be difficult, right? Like IT people are genuinely looking after the interests of the company. They have a very difficult job in trying to bring order to chaos, and it's a constant battle and all of that. So I think it's important to find ways in which the IT folks can get the appropriate degree of comfort while keeping in mind that the real winning proposition for them is to have delighted users. And certainly for VMware, in terms of our vision for applications and really anything that we do here, is to truly think, make people's work better, right? And we've done that in some places. We hope to do it in others. But for what it's worth, I didn't talk too much about SlideRocket, but everything I said about SocialCast also applies to them. I mean, SlideRocket is a very, to say that it's web-based PowerPoint is to sell it extremely short. Yeah. In fact, it's kind of sufficiently different in that the only thing that's common is that they're both presentation packages, but the type of presentations that you build there are different.
I have a statement and a comment. A question.
Quick, run out of time.
Okay, so the statement is that if SocialCast is going to fail, then Salesforce is going to fail because it has the same layout as Facebook. I mean, come on, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, we're used to it. It's using some good paradigms. You're saying.
Exactly. So SocialCast, Facebook, and Salesforce, they all have something in common. That same paradigm. So that's going to continue. But the question then I get is, we're going into all this rich media and Web 2.0 stuff and everything like that. That's great. But when the power is off or I can't reach the network, I got to fall back on something that's local. So therefore, SlideRocket, wonderful acquisition if you're going to be doing everything over the web, but guess what? Unless I have a local access to it, it's not going to happen because if I'm at a conference, the internet is usually the pits.
Yep. Well, that's the same argument for VDI. You have to be able to have it offline.
Yep. We need offline for both of them, and we actually need offline for Salesforce, SocialCast, the works. Because as we put more and more data into there, that becomes our data repository, and we have to have it available to us at any time.
So I agree with you completely. Now, that said, the idealist in me would like to think that betting against the ubiquity of bandwidth is in the long run, a losing proposition.
Well, then go to Nigeria or Moscow or any hotel in the U.S. or Europe and tell me how good it is.
So with that kind of aspirational element aside, I can assure you that with respect to SlideRocket specifically, that we have offline editing and offline viewing as a very important data point and something that we're actively working on. In fact, today there's prototypes of the offline iPad client, an app that will actually allow you to do basic editing of any presentation that you've otherwise assembled in the cloud and run on your local device. So we're very well aware of that problem. As to providing sort of offline access for the broader SaaS-based ecosystem, I agree with you that it's the importance of having ubiquitous and constant access to that data is critical. I think practically speaking, to get somebody like Salesforce already has like third parties that essentially allow you to do that, to take big exports out of it live, but the usability of that is in question. We need to figure out that problem. It's a very legitimate concern, especially as people are moving to alternative devices with limited amounts of storage and so forth, and potentially, not that you find yourself necessarily in Nigeria, although I'm pretty sure they have wireless coverage there that's at least halfway decent, but in general, that you'll need to have a solution for doing offline editing and offline access.
And other people other groups are approaching it, hopefully in a standards-based way, HTML5.
Yep.
I mean, it's definitely a problem. Google certainly is putting a lot of manpower
with Chrome, and I mean, the interest that Google has in making Chrome a viable, fully fledged client. I think that also, speaking to kind of more of the visionary stuff around this sort of where you should see us go next, the idea that there's a new workspace that is emerging in this post-PC or post-Windows world. A workspace that is more reflective of the kind of constant need for data, the fact that the location of that data might be different depending on the service that you're using, that kind of an environment, Windows is built with the assumption that you have a local disk there, and it's like this kind of hierarchical file system and all of these things. I think there has to be something better than that. Hopefully we'll figure it out with your help, of course.
Yeah, one of the things that's working, I think, well is that as the startups are coming in here, the last couple, we're VMware's pretty much half engineering at this point. Still.
Yeah.
And so we can actually put a lot of startups, you have to choose one or two features to focus on. And I think we're actually able to support a broader vision once this functionality comes in there.
Absolutely, and I give a lot of credit to our leadership. The good news about the folks that are helping us run this company is that they've seen this movie before, right? And they lived through the successes and challenges that Microsoft had back in the 90s and prior to that. And frankly, the last big company I worked at was Netscape, which they happened to put out of business. So in a sense, I'm here to redeem that legacy. But anyway, that we do know a lot more. We're humble in our desire to be very, to have impact in areas beyond what we've already have impact on. And by the way, to your very first question about are we still committed, or are we going to be able to? Listen, the amount of R&D dollars that go into vSphere and our Layer 1, our cloud infrastructure technologies, is so significantly larger than any other thing that we spend money on, and the hard computer science that goes into delivering the magic that will be vSphere 5 and all our products from here on out is something that we're not backing down on. We have tremendous pride in our leadership there. It's what makes all of this other experimentation possible. So we do have a very, very set focus on making sure our cloud infrastructure technology continues to kick ass and help make all your lives better, hopefully.
Yeah, it seems that way for me too. Quite honestly, and internally, my sense too is that we've got our eyes on the ball, and that we're approaching this in a responsible way. In some ways, SocialCast kind of helps you find out that your colleagues are not idiots when there is a problem and you do something with SocialCast. Either somebody pipes up and says, "Oh, that is a problem," and we all agree and let's fix it, or somebody says, "Oh, no, you're not thinking about it the right way. Here's what we're doing," and you go, "Oh, okay, you've thought about it. Well, then I'm in the field and I didn't know that, and now I have contacts."
Yeah, and we're very hard on ourselves as a company, I think too. So it's not like for those of you who haven't come out and visit us here in Palo Alto or in Cambridge, which I haven't done, it's not like we're sitting here wearing sort of we're awesome, let's go play volleyball kind of
Lamborghinis
exactly.
In the parking lot.
I think this company has a degree of humility and character that having been in Silicon Valley for a long time, that I haven't seen in a lot of other places. I mean, we're very proud of what we do, and we enjoy winning like nothing else. But at the same time, I think we're humble.
Under promise, over deliver has always been one of our values.
We're having a very interesting values discussion actually on that. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, great, Javier. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
It's my pleasure, John.
It was really great meeting you.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I don't know if we'll actually release the video of this, but thanks for coming on and testing out our studio solution.
Yeah, and for those who care to learn a little bit more about this, you can follow me on Twitter at jsoltero. I promise to keep it fairly on topic, and although occasionally you'll see me ramble about something on there.
Hey, it's Twitter.
I know you're allowed to do that,
beings,
right? Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'm not quite sure what the podcast will be next week, but I'll be here back from Vancouver. So see you all soon.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody, for your time. Have a great week.
Thanks, John.
burn out and to fade away.